Good morning, everybody. I am Jen Davis, and we are going to jump into Level Up Building a Buyer Business Within a Business. So, if you can hear me, I would love for somebody to make a comment just so I can make sure that the sound is good. We're going to jump in and kind of talk about what the class looks like. You should have a question box. So, if you have any questions, put those in there. Also say hi. I love to hear from people, just so I know that you're out there. So about the program is designed really to expand your thinking. It is designed to talk to you about the buyer agent role and building a team within a team. So it is not seen as a less than role. And what I mean by that is it's not a less than role as opposed to the Rainmaker role or the mega agent role. It is a viable option to build a business within a team. So when we look at this, we're going to try to expand your thinking and change your mindset around this buy-side business. Again, if you're out there, would love for somebody just to chime in so I know that the volume and tone is coming through okay. We are going to look at how do we leverage all along the way. So when we are looking at our buy-side business, at what point do you leverage what? When are you going to add admin support? When are you going to add lead generation support? Thank you, Allison. When are you going to add that showing support? And so the program is designed to change your mindset. So when you look at this, you think about it in the same way that you would think about the MREA model on the listing side and replicating that on the buy side. So what we're trying to do is develop leaders within your organization so that you can build a team within a team. So when we look at this, the class is great for buyer's agents, clearly. We're going to go over a ton of scripts, a ton of efficiency hacks to make it easier for you to help a massive amount of buyers. And then we're going to try to streamline that buy-side process so that we can also preserve your quality of life. And then we are going to learn to use leverage all along the way to maximize the efficiencies that you're going to learn on your own. And then we are going to look at how do we find talent and how do we keep talent. And then finally, we're going to go over utilizing what that showing agent model looks like in an effort to increase customer care and repeat business. And I see that there are a handful of people that are telling people to mute. So I don't have anybody actually in my office that is typing or talking. So if for whatever reason there's background noise and you're on the call, if you could put your call on mute, there may just be a glitch in the system that they haven't muted all callers. So the program details, our official launch is going to be June 3rd. The length of the class is 5 weeks. We are scheduled on Mondays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and the price is $149. If you are unavailable on Mondays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, these calls are recorded so that you can listen to them at a time that works best for you. So we're going to jump in. This first slide kind of goes through basically what my growth has been. So again, my name is Jen Davis. I'm the coach for this program. I am on Holt Homes Group team here in Springfield, Missouri, so right in the middle of the Midwest. And up until this past year, I have been the lead buyer specialist for our team. As of the first of the year, I took over a director of sales role. However, this class is really going to focus on those leverage points that really got me to that point. So the first year that I was in business was in 2013. Dan hired me to be the lead buyer specialist. and my goal at that time was to sell 50 homes. At the end of the year, I closed 49 units, and at that point, really the only leverage that I had was a part-time assistant, and I shared her with Dan. So the levels in this are going to correspond with the weeks in the program. So when we look at this, you're going to see kind of my thought process behind each piece of leverage. So the next year, the goal was to sell 65 homes. We ended up closing 72 units on the buy side, and that was just with myself. I did at that time, I was able to utilize a full-time assistant, and then Dan and I still shared a part-time assistant. And then we were starting to leverage at that point scheduling showings. We were building a system for client care. So the goal was really to build in this system that buyers could buy into, so that when they thought of our team, they thought of an efficient system and an efficient experience that also made it an easy experience for themselves. And then the next year we really leveraged with lead generation. So what we did is we focused on building this massive pipeline so that I could have a business that I could duplicate, that I could bring somebody else into my world in an effort to really be able to focus on the buyers that were in front of me and be able to help more people. So the next part of it, then we were able to build up this pipeline, and we went from the 72 closed units to 110 closed units. And that was just with the development of this giant pipeline. I also was able to hire a MAPS coach that year, and he was able to help start building in some additional efficiencies with lead conversion, lead follow-up, setting expectations with clients to really hone in the skill to make the experience better for the client. In 2016 was really when we developed the showing agent model. And at that point, we added two that year, one in January and then the following one in June. So it was myself and two showing agents, and our production jumped up to 182 units. At that point, I was leveraging showings. I was leveraging lead nurturing. I was leveraging building a massive buyer pipeline. So it was no longer just me that was in charge of this. I was building my team within a team, and then our director of lead generation was actually able to build her team within a team. In 2017 and 2018, we really just had the same people in place. We were just tweaking our systems in an effort to streamline our process. And so when we talk about in this class, we're going to talk about different ceilings that we get to. And typically what I found is the ceiling really comes from either a missing person or a missing system. So when we look at this, when we get to a ceiling, when things start to feel chaotic, which is very normal, I feel like, as a buyer's agent, when things start to feel chaotic, we have to look at it and think, what is the ceiling? Is the ceiling a person that we're missing, or is the ceiling a system that we need to have in place but don't yet have one? So you'll see on this first slide, we're going to talk through the top activities as a buyer's agent. And this is before you have showing agents. This is before you have really a whole lot of admin support. Our activities are lead generation and lead follow-up. I put them separately, and you'll see here in a little bit why. Lead follow-up is just as important as lead generation. If you're taking the time to generate leads, you must build in a time block to also follow up with that leads. Otherwise, what happens is it's not an intentional, focused effort, and we all know that fortune is in the follow-up. So it's great that we're generating leads, and we also have to do something with those leads once we have them. The next thing are buyer consults. I spend almost the whole week 1 and week 2 going through buyer consults, setting expectations, and setting yourself up for success all along the way with your clients. And so that really sets the tone for your relationship with the client. When you do a strategy session or a buyer consult, or whatever term you'd like to use for it, and you do it well, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up, number one, as the expert with your client, and number two, you're setting yourself up to win with them so that they can understand what the process looks like, what to expect next, and then you create this win-win relationship that we're all after with our clients. Also getting buyer agency agreements signed. Without agency agreements signed, we really can't help these buyers. It would be the equivalent of a listing agent going on an appointment and not getting a listing agreement signed. And then going into showings. Clearly showings, I know that everyone is ready to leverage those off very early on, and still it's the fun part. That was my last thing that I leveraged, right? So I loved the showing part. That was when it was fun for the buyers. You could sense the energy, you could sense the excitement. You are at that point doing what the client expects for you to do. They don't understand all of maybe the rest of your role, but this is the part that they really look forward to, and this is the part where you get to shine. And then negotiations. And negotiations, when we talk about it in the program, are anywhere from negotiating price on the contract to closing date, and then really even into those inspection issues. We'll spend a ton of time over what it looks like to set yourself up with your clients so that you can build in a buffer around your fall through ratio. So national average is a 10% fall through ratio. How do we make sure as we do more units and we help more people that fall through ratio doesn't get out of whack? And we're going to talk about the wins that I've had and the failures that I've had. The year that we closed 223 buy-side units, we had 37 fall through, and I think that's a 14 or 15% fall through ratio. So when you look at that and you think, I wrote 37 contracts and read 37 inspection reports that didn't go to closing. Now, we were able to still help some of those buyers and they were still able to close on different homes, but it's a lot of extra work. And we're going to talk about during the negotiations, how do you set it up so that your deals don't fall through during that period? And I'll have a lot of scripts around it. It really starts in the consult and follows you all the way through the showings and into the negotiations. So when we talk about lead generation being one of our top activities, you've got to master your leads. So when we talk about mastering your leads, you have to establish what your lead generation levers are. So are they open houses? Is it circle prospecting? Is it, whatever it may be, you have to understand, number one, what you're good at, and number two, what you're willing to do, and focus your time and effort there. So if you're in this program and you're either a rainmaker or a buyer's agent, you can ask yourself this question: is the organization that either I'm in or I'm building marketing based or prospecting based? And what I mean by that, are you database driven? Do you have a high repeat referral business that you market to with maybe a little bit of lead generation with new buyers or non-Mets? Or are you prospecting based? So my team for a long time was prospecting based. We went after leads. We didn't have much of a database. We were a new company that was trying to build a company. So we were prospecting based, and then we had this marketing enhancement to this small database that we had that we were trying to build. There's not a right or wrong. There is, however, a healthy mix. I believe that to be a successful organization, you have to have some balance of marketing and prospecting. So your repeat referral clients, those are the warm leads. Those are the ones that already love you. Those are the ones that are an easier, higher conversion. And at the same time, as you're building your business and as you're wanting to grow, you've got to add to that database. And in an effort to do that, you have to have prospecting. So understand, what is your lead generation lever? Focus on 2 or 3 of them, become an expert in those, and stick with it. Build your business off of those levers that you decide. And then create a lead follow-up system that you will actually use. So buyers are wondering the follow-up. When we talk about, I talked about it on the last slide, as important as lead generation is, in the Shift book, Gary Keller talks about lead conversion is just as important. If you can get a name, number, and ultimately an appointment, or if you cannot get a name, number, and ultimately an appointment, what have you accomplished? Why did you have the conversation? So going into the conversation around lead generation of, I've got to capture this information so that I can follow up with them. And I'm going to build out a follow-up plan so that I can hold myself accountable to touching these people and ensuring that when they get ready to transact in real estate, that they think of me. I don't care if they're buying in 30 days, 6 months, or 6 years. I'm here for the long haul. I'm building a business, and what I've got to do is I've got to make sure that my follow-up plan is systematic enough that my name is the one that they think of when they get ready to make that purchase. And then making sure when you're lead generating and when you're following up that you are providing a high level of value to your clients at every step. So we've got to be the expert. We are in a relationship business, but our value is knowledge. It's not that we're friendly. It's not that we're fun to be around. It's not that we can open a door. We're providing value. We're telling them what the market is doing. We're telling them what, when is a good time to buy, what area is a good time to buy, how do we meet where do we find the wants and needs? How do we meet in the middle of what that is so that they feel like they get absolutely as much as they want out of their house, and providing that value of we can find you the best possible house at the best possible price. So understanding that as you're doing your lead generation and as you're following up with these leads, that you have to have a consistent, clear message that you're giving your clients. And it has to add value. They don't want to be followed up with just to check it off of your list. They want to be followed up with in a way that you're adding value to their lives. So then when we talked about, okay, one of the main activities as a buyer's agent is mastering the buyer consult. So when we're doing this buyer consult, we're asking questions and you learn to listen. If you've ever heard somebody tell a story and they're relaying a conversation that they had with someone, and think about it, over the holiday weekend, you're going to be in social settings or hopefully showing some houses. When someone relays a story of something they heard from someone else or a conversation that they had with someone else, you can understand what type of listener they are are they telling the story from their point of the conversation? So are they telling you what they said in the conversation, or are they telling you what the other person said? If you can reiterate a conversation and not say, well, then I said this, but the conversation is this person that said this, and then they said this, and this is the order in which they said it. What you're doing is you're establishing that you're a good listener and you can reiterate what they've said to you in a well-patterned way. So just kind of pay attention to that this weekend. When people are maybe having a good time and gossiping about somebody else, you'll start to understand most people, when they relay a story, are relaying it from their perspective and not somebody else's. When you can flip that switch during the buyer consult and you're truly asking questions and you learn to listen from their perspective, is when you start being able to help massive amounts of people. So during that consult, you've got to establish motivation. Motivation will control every other part of their buying process. If they're not ready, willing, and able to buy, regardless of regardless of the perfect house, if that hits the market and they're not ready to buy, you're not going to be able to use any type of a script to get them to move faster if you don't understand what their motivation is. You have to learn what their non-negotiables are versus the wants. So when we talk about, different things with buyers and they say, no, I have to have this or I have to have that, asking 5 more questions, going 5 deep on those questions so that you understand why it's a non-negotiable. And then what is the buyer not saying? We've all heard that saying, buyers are liars. And it is one of those sayings that frustrates me to no end because I don't believe it. I believe it's the agent's responsibility. If you don't understand what the buyer wants at the end of that consult and you're not willing to ask additional questions during those showings, that's on the agent as the expert's shoulders. So we've got to figure out, how do we ask enough questions that the buyer feels comfortable opening up to us so that we can understand exactly what they want and when they want it. So then we've got to set these expectations, and we're setting expectations around showings, when we're going to show, how many houses we're going to show, what our communication is going to look like, and what the market's doing. Are you in a seller's market or are you in a buyer's market? You must communicate that effectively and efficiently over and over and over and over again during the process. If you're in a seller's market and you go to write an offer and that's the first time the client has heard that they're going to have to offer over list price, their very first question is going to be, oh gosh, do you work for me or do you work for the seller? Right? So we've got to make sure that we're setting the right expectations around the market. We set expectations around the contracts. What do they mean? What do they look like? What's going to happen during this phase? We're going to set expectations during the negotiations, the buyer agreement getting signed, and getting the buyer pre-approved. All of these things here, I'm ending every conversation with, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's what to expect next. And the reason I'm saying that is because they don't know. They don't do this 250 times a year, and I need to make sure that they're 100% comfortable so that they can have a great experience with our team. So if those are the activities that we have to focus on and kind of an outline of what that looks like, what are the activities that slow you down? What might be the first piece of leverage that we need? Maybe it's setting showings, maintaining your database, adding to your database, establishing a database if you don't have one yet, and then providing documents. So when we look at pulling covenants and restrictions or disclosures or utilities or an aerial map, maybe those are the things that right now are bogging you down, and that's why you can't help more people. You're stuck in your 80% activities, right? Those activities are not dollar producing activities, and it's preventing you from showing and helping more buyers. And then filling out documents. Our contract where I'm at is a pre-printed form. I can leverage that part out to an admin person on my team that's been well trained on contracts, so that 30 minutes that it might take to fill out is 30 minutes that I can reinvest into lead generation, lead follow-up, or showing another client. And then building out a consistent experience for the customer. So what does that look like? If those are the activities, so we talk about setting showings and we want there to be a consistent experience, well, for me, it looks like the way that my folders are built. So when I go on a showing, my folders look the exact same whether I show it or a showing agent is going to show the property. On the left-hand side of the folder are the documents that are going to stay with me, and on the right hand side of the folder, the documents will stay in there for the buyer. So when I get to the house, I can pull out my documents. They're in the same order that the buyers are in, so that way if we get separated while we're driving, the buyer then knows what home to go to next. We're building in these efficiencies so that we have a consistent consumer experience. Whether it's me or another agent that shows up, they're going to get the same experience. And then obtaining client reviews. If that's something that you're not doing effectively, efficiently, and consistently, that might be one of the first things that you should leverage. The faster you can get some reviews online, the more organic style leads or come list me's for buyers you may get. And then what would happen if you only focused on your top activities? So we talked a little bit about the principle of greatest leverage a little bit ago when I started talking about the 80% rule. So what that means is on the 20%, if we focused on our 20% activities, which are our dollar producing activities, those are the activities that are going to give us 80% of our income. So those activities that we talked about earlier, lead generation, lead follow-up, buyer consults, setting showing or going on showings, negotiating contracts, that's where you make your money. So what would happen to your business if you leveraged off that second list? If you leveraged off the things that take up your time, setting showings, we've all been there. We get home at 7 o'clock at night, we're super excited to see our family, and all of a sudden a buyer sends you a list of 3 properties that they want to see the next day. And instead of spending time with your family, what you end up doing is mapping the houses, trying to get a hold of the seller, seeing what houses you can get in, and you're on your phone for another 30 to 45 minutes. minutes. What would it look like if you could focus your time where it needed to be and you had somebody in the office doing those types of activities? When you start to look at it like that and you start to look at it as, I'm going to narrow my focus so that I can help more buyers, you start running your business like a business. You understand time blocking. You understand leveraging activities, what activities those need to be, and in what order you need to leverage them. You start building in efficiencies in your business so that you can help more people with less wasted time. At the same time, if you're focused on those top producing activities, what happens is you're actually going to increase your repeat and referral business because you're being intentional with your time. And then you can begin building your team within a team. So when you're building your team, you're looking for empire protectors, which typically comes in the role of like an admin person. It's someone to help you build in a consumer experience so that it's consistent all the way through. What I have found is most buyers come back around not because they love me so much, but because they love the system that our team provides. And we have a great lead follow-up system. So once someone's in our database, we have systems in place so that they become a forever client. And then you are building your team by looking for empire builders. Those are going to be somebody in lead generation, somebody that is a showing agent, someone that's going to add to the activities that are your top 20% activities. So additional dollar producing activities. So when we're at these different ceilings, we talked about it earlier, typically what happens is if you're at a ceiling and you're feeling chaotic and you can't get out of a slump or you can't get to the next level, what happens is you're either missing a person or you're missing a system, right? So when we look at this, here are the indicators that you're ready to hire. So if we've built out all the systems that we can build out and we have made things as efficient as possible, and these things start to happen, they're very good indicators that you're actually missing a person instead of a system. So customer service starts to slip. You're unable to service your clients. You're unable to show property, or you're unable to negotiate contracts because you're showing property, or you're unable to do lead follow-up or lead generation because you're so busy working in the business that you're not working on your business. And so when that happens, your leads begin to slip. You either forget the follow-up or you have these peaks and valleys that happen with real estate because you're so busy you're not lead generating, or you forget the follow-up part of it. And it's a cycle that happens a lot with buyer's agents because we get so busy in showings and negotiating contracts and making sure our deals stay together that the first thing we're willing to give up is lead generation. And what happens is now you don't have that pipeline, and 30 days from now, you have to start all over again. And then when you're pushing the boundaries of personal productivity, you're lead generating as much as you can, you're doing the follow-up, you're handling the showings, you're negotiating contracts, and you've established this minimum standard for yourself. So you know month after month, year after year, the number of deals that you can do, that you can sustain. And what happens is you're ready to grow and you have these minimum standards and you're working out the peaks and valleys in your business and you want growth. At that point, you need to hire another person. And being emotionally aware enough to understand the ceiling that you're up against. So what is that ceiling? Is it you? Do you need to hire someone? Do you need to give opportunity to someone that's already in your organization? Understanding what it is, why you're there, and then having maybe a coach or a mega agent or a team leader or someone to help you recognize, how do we break through this ceiling? And then you also have to, when you're ready to hire, you have to be able to effectively communicate a vision for your team within the team. So now you're in charge of vision. You've got a mega agent that you're working with, and you're receiving what their vision is, you believe in it, you're building your team, and you have to be able to communicate that person's vision along with your own to attract and keep talent. And then you're building out the MREA model on the buy side. So you're going to start with admin support. You're not going to go straight to showing agents. You're going to start with admin support, then you're going to add support on lead generation, then you probably are going to add some more admin support, and then you're going to add help with the showings. The showings are one of the very last things that you're going to leverage. The reason being, if you add showing agents before you have amazing admin support in place, guess who becomes the admin? You will. If you don't have admin in place, you will become the admin. And what happens then is you're now no longer in your top 20% activities, and you're going to be the admin for your showing agent. So being purposeful in these different points of leverage is key to building a massive buy-side business. So kind of wrapping up for today, I am so thankful that you guys were all on the call today. I hope you sign up for the program. Again, we launched June 3rd. The program is 5 weeks. You can find it on mapscoaching.com, and the name of the class is Level Up, Building a Team Within a Team. And if you have any questions for me individually, I would love to answer those. My email address is Jen Davis, JenDavis, KW@gmail.com. I hope you all have a safe and awesome weekend and go sell something. Have a great day, guys. Thanks. Bye.